So you're someone who desperately wants to get control of your health and fitness, but you find yourself endlessly scrolling at the end of the day rather than going to the gym. Or you stick to your diet really well Monday to Thursday, but then when it gets to Friday, you can't resist going to the pub or having countless drive-through feeds all through the weekend. You might think your issue is just discipline, that you're just lazy, but the truth is there's something bigger at play here. Your brain does not care about getting jacked, it cares about survival. And when your brain perceives stress, uncertainty, or overload, comfort feels like the literal smart option. Hard work and discipline feels more like a threat. So the first takeaway here is that you're not a shit person for feeling lazy or unmotivated. Our brains did not evolve in 2026 in the society that we live in now. But if we can understand the neuroscience a little bit more, we can hijack it to get you closer to whatever fitness goal you may have. So the first thing you need to understand is dopamine's role in motivation. Dopamine drives seeking. It's the motivation hormone rather than the enjoyment hormone. And this is where it's a little bit misunderstood. Constant high spikes of dopamine from caffeine, phone use, adult content, it kind of flattens baseline dopamine. It desensitizes those receptors. So effort and doing hard shit just doesn't feel as good, and it's gonna feel a lot more like a drag. So this is where in the gym, you don't feel great, your pumps feel weaker, music doesn't hit as much, and you start relying more on caffeine just to feel normal again. There were times when I was struggling with this without realizing that I'd rock up to the gym, I'd do probably 1 to 2 exercises, I'd feel shit and literally leave. Then I'd end up just feeling sorry for myself and feeling like I let myself down and I was just lazy. But again, this is less about your personality and more about your hormonal and nervous state. The next thing you need to understand is how discipline functions when stress is very high. Stress doesn't make you lazy, but it narrows your behavioral options. So to make sense of this, we can consider your brain being split into front and back. The front, that's more responsible for control, planning, responsible decisions, and the back part of your brain is more in control of threat and protection. Chronically elevated stress literally turns down that front part of your brain and bumps up the backside. So that's when you feel that, when you are really stressed, that discipline disappears a little bit and you find it harder to make those decisions. I'm sure you guys have experienced this before. I know I have. There's been times, especially before I ran a business and stress overall was lower, when I would just do hard shit for the fun of it. Like stay up late and go to the gym late to say I did it, or get up really early and go for a run randomly. And you might also find that when you get back from a holiday, you really want to lock in and do hard things. Discipline is a lot less of a personality trait and more of a nervous system state. So with all this in mind, with understanding the role that stress has on discipline and how much harder it is when we're constantly spiking dopamine, what can we actually do to solve this and get you guys feeling motivated and disciplined again? The first step is just try and reduce dopamine noise. So identify where you're getting most of yours from. It tends to be the first thing you reach for when you are very stressed or tired, and set some boundaries around that. For me, it's always going to be my phone use. So I try and have the first and last 30 minutes of my day phone free. I'll wake myself up with my Whoop here, or you can use any other alarm. And I just try and get as much done as I can in the morning before I touch my phone. The next thing is I would try and break your stimulant cycle. So many guys are constantly spiking their dopamine through smashing stimulants. Nicotine and caffeine are two of the big ones. I speak to a lot of guys who are chronically stressed and unmotivated, who are dosing themselves with way too much caffeine. And for most of these guys, I guarantee it's not even hitting anymore. You're not even getting a benefit from it. You're just not feeling shit when you take it. You don't have to go cold turkey, just gradually start reducing it to earlier and earlier in the day so you can sleep better and start focusing a lot better throughout the day. My next tip to reduce dopamine noise, and this kind of ties into tip 1 for me personally, is get a morning routine. So try and get a routine that doesn't involve high spikes of dopamine, something low stimulation. It could be meditation, breath work, writing a list for the day, stretching, something that breaks you out of that need and that habit of reaching for dopamine first thing in the morning. You're gonna start the day off feeling better, and you won't be thinking and reaching for easy dopamine as fast. And the final tip, guys, for reducing dopamine noise is when you put something down, make sure you pick something back up. So if you're trying to stop going on your phone in bed at night, start reading. Find an activity that's lower stim, lower dopamine that you do enjoy, because if you just lay there doing nothing, chances are you're just gonna reach back for your phone again. What you will find is that your mind will begin to quieten, and that discipline can start to build out of that more calm, rested mind. My next tip for regaining control is shrink tasks until they don't feel like much at all. When you are in that stressed out threat response state, Big tasks just feel too overwhelming. If you really can't be bothered prepping your food on a Sunday, just start by prepping your protein. Or better yet, just start by chopping up that chicken breast into pieces and chucking it in the fridge. Don't want to do cardio? Just start with a 10 to 15 minute walk, or even 5 minutes if that's all you can manage to do. What you will find in all these cases is you'll most likely start doing more anyway once you started. But that stress response is just preventing you from doing the first little bit. And you might think to yourself, Aiden, what's the point of doing just a small bit? Like if I'm gonna do it, I might as well do the whole thing. Well, true, I agree, but right now, you're not doing anything at all. Just start with a little bit. Tip number 3, guys, for regaining control and motivation is to learn how to regulate your nervous system before you escalate and start doing more work. The simplest and easiest way to do this is to first understand how the breath actually controls your nervous system. A longer exhale compared to your inhale will downregulate your nervous system, and the opposite, so a longer inhale and a shorter exhale, will upregulate your nervous system, which is why when you're hyperventilating, you're getting really panicked, you tend to have a like that, and when you're trying to relax, you'll take a deep breath and a slow exhale. A very good way to downregulate your nervous system in a very short period of time is called a physiological sigh, where you'll take a good strong breath in through your nose, another extra bit to get as much air in as you can, and then a very slow exhale like you're blowing out through a straw. So it looks something like this. Do that, say 3 times, and you'll feel a big sense of relaxation come over your body. This is the basis of breath work. It's not just spiritual shit. It actually helps to downregulate your nervous system. And if you're stuck in a stress state constantly, which many of you guys are who have really low motivation, this is a simple reset that you can do, which when you transition from work to home or from home to the gym, whatever you need. The next thing, if you look at your actual training, a lot of you guys try and tape over high stress with really, really hard training. And what happens, you feel motivated for the first time, so you do 6 to 7 sessions in a week, and you feel like shit again, so you stop training. So start small, and when you are very stressed, you know your nervous system is very upregulated, leave 2 to 3 reps in the tank occasionally. What this will do, pulling that back a little bit, will allow you to have more sustainable progression and performance over time. You can't always put a band-aid of hard training over a very stressed out nervous system. And I see this mistake all the time. Guys burying themselves in work when they feel a little bit of motivation, they put themselves back in the hole, and they have a long stretch of never really feeling like themselves. And they think, man, I'm just lazy, I'm just undisciplined. And the final thing to reduce stress, promote discipline, and get control back is having as much structure and routine as possible. Yes, variety is great, but the more decision fatigue we can minimize, the less stressed you will feel. So consistent days when you train is a must. For a lot of people, having the same meals from day to day, but maybe one meal different like dinner, is gonna be really helpful as well. Trying to have consistent sleep windows, the time you go to bed, the time you wake up. When I integrated as much structure into my day as possible, I honestly felt more free. It didn't feel like I was bogged down by routine and structure. Consistency just stops feeling like as much of a fight, and it just feels like it flows way better. So guys, you might feel like you lack a lot of discipline, but before you go about blaming yourself, you need to learn how to regulate your nervous system, reduce dopamine noise, and manage stress. That's where that feeling of discipline and motivation actually grows. And this is exactly what I work on with my clients who want to develop a physique they're proud of. I'm going to include a link down below. If you're watching this far, I would assume that you probably struggle with similar things. So if you want to have a chat, hit that link. We can explore if there's any way in which I can help you, and then we can go from there. And guys, as I'm still in the early days of getting this channel off the ground, I really appreciate if you could like this video, leave a comment, and hit subscribe.